Hey everybody, it's great to be here. This is Paul Moore. So glad you could join us today. Let me get some technical stuff out of the way and we'll be ready to roll. All right. Hey everybody, this is Paul Moore. We are going live. How are you today? Hey, this is Paul Moore, real estate investor, serial entrepreneur, madman who wears too many hats, and so glad you could join us here. We are getting ready to get started, and before we do, I just want to give everybody a few minutes to join in. Please tell me where you're from, what you do, and we're going to get ready to go in a few minutes here. So, glad you're here. This is Paul Moore. It's BiggerPockets Live. Facebook Live, YouTube Live, all that stuff. Glad you're here. All right. Hey, everybody. So, hey, Peter, how's it going? Where are you from? Hey, Matt. Matt buys houses in Idaho. Anybody got a house to sell in Idaho? Glad you're here, Matt. Hey, Amir. Good to see you again. Hey, Waldo, Antonio, thanks for joining. So I've got some screens up here behind my camera, so I'm actually not staring off into the distance aimlessly. I may be staring off into the distance, but hopefully not aimlessly. Hey, Johan. Hey, Bataba Bridges. Welcome. Glad you're here. Hey, Kareem. Kareem's from New Jersey and is a beginning investor. Matt, Boise, Idaho, Shopify store owner. Matt, what is Shopify? I'd love to hear about that. So Manny Martinez from Chicago, looking to buy his first property. Man, my mother lives right off Lakeshore Drive, and I love your town. I'm going to be there really soon, in fact. So great to have you on here. Onur, Ozzy, you have follower from Turkey. All right. Hey. Daniel Griffith from Greensboro. Greensboro is only 2 hours south of me, and I love. I can't believe my favorite restaurant in Greensboro shut down though. So I can't remember what it's called. So maybe that's why it shut down. Since apparently people couldn't remember. It was something Farmer. You can remember that. It's right next door to Burger Wars. Anyway, so hey, Ella Marie from Fairfield, California. Flood of Sins. Okay, Flood of Sins. Thanks for joining us. I'd love to hear where you got the name. Blake Hobart from Palmyra, Missouri. Welcome. Greg from Fort Myers, Florida. Greg, I was just in Fort Myers when our family went to the Henry Ford and winter home there. So Thomas Edison winter home. It's awesome. So Shopify is an e-commerce platform, and Matt says he owns a few stores. That's pretty cool. I'm reading some of these. You guys might think that everybody can see these, but we actually have 3 platforms going here. We've got YouTube, Facebook, and BiggerPockets Live. So I'm actually needing to get my chat box open on BiggerPockets Live. So Ben, my amazing guy, is helping me with that. We're just going to get a few things lined up here. So Ben's going to help me get my camera angle right. It was right earlier. I thought I looked pretty good. Maybe it's because I didn't have my wife's input. And so, hey, so Facebook, I am not seeing my comments here on Facebook. Okay, here we go. So, hey, Cameron, Anchorage, Alaska. Hey, Lynn McFarland, what are you going to talk about? Lynn, I'm going to talk about whatever's on your mind today. There's Brian Taylor from South Carolina. Hey, Brian. Brian does mobile home parks. Brian is one of the sharpest guys in the real estate investing space that I've met. So if you guys ought to get to know Brian Taylor if you haven't. Kevin Stewart, Victorville, California. Hello. Brian and I have actually co-authored a number of articles on BiggerPockets, and we've really enjoyed doing that together. Brian is a huge Warren Buffett fan, And so, hey, if you all can help BiggerPockets and me out, if you would just hit the like button, if you would just hit, the smiley face, all that stuff that you guys do, would really appreciate it. So, Waldo's from Garland, Texas, Triple Nation from Dallas, Johan Rampage from Houston. So here's what we're going to do today, y'all. We're going to, Kevin says your mom has money. Okay. Minneapolis, Minnesota. Yeah, you know what? She actually does, and she used to live in Greensboro. We were talking about Greensboro earlier. She moved to Chicago, and she lives in an apartment there. And actually, I was surprised at how reasonably priced her apartment is. So, okay. So we're getting ready to start. Maha. Hi, Paul. Can you talk about the best markets to invest in, cities around Washington State? Great question. I don't know that area super well, but I'll do my best to answer that question first. In a minute here, Kid City, Linwood. Paul, how do you reserve enough money to live on when doing a 1031 exchange, and any other info you have on it? Julie from Washington's planning on selling her business. So I'm going to actually take that first. It's a tough question. Reserving enough money to live on when you're doing a 1031 exchange. I don't really think I have enough information to answer that. I think that it's all or nothing in the 1031 exchange. From what I know, that's not true. I believe you can actually put part of the money into a 1031 exchange, and let's say you're exchanging out of a $200,000 property and you can only find a $100,000 property, then you release the rest and the other $100,000 is taxable. So that's an option. I think that I don't understand all the rules on that, but I believe that you can decide that even after the fact, which, as you know, is as late as 6 months later. You can name, in a 1031 exchange, it's a tax-deferred situation where you can sell out of a property into another one. You give the money to an intermediary. The intermediary holds the money, and then you have 45 days, which is incredibly difficult, but to name approximately 3 other properties. You can do 1, 2, or 3, and there are situations where you can do more, and then you can buy one of those in 4.5 more months, 6 months total. And once you close, the intermediary hands the money straight to the seller or the seller closing attorney, and then you do not have to pay taxes at that time. Capital gains tax is deferred. You kick the can down the road. And by the way, chapter 10 in my book talks about how you can kick that can down the road time after time after time and never pay taxes on it. There's actually 2 ways to do that, by the way. One way is to eventually move into the property yourself. And they say, and I haven't read this in writing, but I've heard over and over that if you wait 2 years, let's say you buy a rental home that you eventually want to move into, you can wait 2 years. And then after that 2-year period in the 1031, you can actually change your mind, stop renting it, and move into the property and not pay the capital gains that was owed all along. Again, I'm not a tax attorney, but I don't play one on TV. That was funny in the 70s, and I can imagine it's not funny anymore. If you think that's funny, at least give me a smile or a heart or something. But anyway, you can do partial 1031 exchange as well. So I hope, Kid City, that helps out. As far as investing around Washington State, I can't answer that question specifically, but I will tell you we have Wellings Capital, my company, has approximately 22 metrics that we look at to decide if we want to invest in a certain city. And so we're looking for net population migration. Positive, of course. There's a 0.8% growth rate in the population in the U.S. in general. So we want to find a city where the growth rate is higher than 0.8%, which means more people are moving in than out. You can have a great multifamily or any project in a city where people are moving out, and it's actually not going to be a great, thanks, Alicia. Thanks, Fred. It's not going to be a great deal in the long run. So we have 22 metrics we look at. We look for low unemployment. We look for high population migration. We look for a diverse economy, lots of different employers, not dependent on the military. A lot of people debate that, and I might be wrong on that. That's what we think. We're looking for a place where there is education, healthcare. We're looking for a place where there's just a lot happening. Places like Austin, Texas, Charlotte, North Carolina, Houston. Houston was just rated by Green Street data analysis as the top place to invest in multifamily in the United States out of 62 markets in the next 5 years. And Dallas, which we thought was way better than Houston, actually was dropped to a B grade out of an ABC scale. So, hey, who would know? But I don't really have an answer about the Washington State area. I've heard the Tri-Cities area on the border of, I believe it's Washington and one of the other states out there, is supposedly a great place to invest. So, hey, Maha, can you, let's see, talk about the best? Okay, that was Maha. That was her answer. Your answer. Adi R says, hey, Paul, I'm 16 and I want your advice on the best way for me to excel in real estate investment, flips, rentals, guidelines, source, learning suggestions. Adi, you're in the right place. BiggerPockets is it. I don't think there's one specific route you can take. I think there are actually 7 ways to get into multifamily investing, for example, and there's probably more ways than that to get into single family home investing. I wasn't planning on talking about this today, but it just hit me, so I will. You can consider a lease option sandwich. And a lease option sandwich is where you lease to own, rent to own a house, usually get a pre-foreclosure or something like that, and then you put it inside a land contract, which protects you, a land trust, what am I saying? And then you rent to own it on the other side. Maybe you go in and clean it, paint it, stage it, do a few nice things, and then you rent it out for a higher price than you're renting it for. And then that arbitrage, that delta, that difference is your profit. And what you can do is maybe you can buy, like we bought one like that in Roanoke, Virginia for $148,000. We paid the back taxes and paid the back mortgage. And then we put it back on the market for $190,000. And that would be like a 3 to 4 year down the road price. And the person who moved in paid us $300-$400 profit a month. And then they closed on it at $190,000. And we made a great profit. So rent to own. Another way is through an Airbnb landlord arbitrage. And I can tell you more about that if somebody asks me specifically. Basically, you go in, you rent an apartment, you stage it beautifully, then you put it back on Airbnb, or better yet, a corporate rental program. And I have all kinds of information about that. We are doing that in Lexington, Kentucky. Hey, Colette, thanks for joining us. Kid City, you're welcome. Daniel Griff, is it worth it to have a home warranty on a rental? I'd say anything you can do to protect yourself. I mean, renters are harder than owners on property typically. That's another advantage to rent to own, by the way. The renters are typically easier on properties. I've done a whole bunch of rent to owns, and there's a lot of information. We can talk about that if anybody wants. The fastest way through single family or multifamily, I think single home investing is probably a faster way to get into the business. Multifamily is where almost everybody migrates to grow and eventually make their fortune. So I've seen that progression over and over. Matt says, do you know any fellow investor, cash buyers, and lenders in the Boise area? I don't, but I would put that out on BiggerPockets. Thanks for the question. Hey, Nanette, can you recommend a bank you use to finance real estate investment real estate? I used to use really big banks like, in this part of the country, BB&T and Wells Fargo and all that. But my son is flipping land right now, and he's doing really, really well. And I don't think he wants me to talk about it because it's kind of proprietary what he's doing. But he's using a local bank, and that local bank is far more flexible. And we've also been using credit unions. Wouldn't have thought of that 10 years ago. And that seems to work better. You get to know them. You go to lunch with them. They don't have some big board up in Charlotte, North Carolina, or somewhere else to answer to. And so that can really be helpful. I would try to make relationships with your local bankers. My son is killing it with local bankers. By the way, I talked to a hard money lender source today in San Francisco. I think it's called Lending Home. They're the largest hard money lender in the United States already, and you can talk to them to find out more. Do you know a realtor in Colorado? I don't, Colette. Sorry. I hate to sound biased. I'm not a Keller Williams realtor. I do have a real estate broker license, which I don't use that much, but I would always look for a Keller Williams agent, and I'll probably get some heat for that. But they often are trained and motivated, and they have the ethics that a lot of real estate investors can really sync up with. Keller Williams is killing it. Everybody knows that. Gary Keller has started an amazing company, and it's obviously the largest company in the world, but their largest real estate company in the United States, at least. And so they're a great company. I've always admired that company. If you want to get into real estate, Gary Keller's book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, which was published around 2003 or 4, is the definitive guide. It's sold about 1 million copies in a business that only has about 1 million potential readers. So a lot of realtors have that book. So I'm not sure of the exact numbers. But David Blandon says, other than direct mail and driving for dollars, what's a good current method to find great deals for wholesaling? Driving for dollars has a lot of benefit because you can look for shades that are down, grass that is up, mailboxes that are full of junk mail. It's a great way, and a lot of real estate investors, especially once they get 5 or 10 or 20 deals under their belt, they don't want to drive for dollars anymore. I know that's how we found deals back in 2001, and frankly, we got tired of it. So other ways to do it. My friend David has a method that you guys can connect with a guy named Chad Corbett. Chad Corbett is brilliant. He's on BiggerPockets. He's very hard to get hold of. He's got this method of finding deals through courthouse, going to the courthouse and finding people, what's it called? Probate deals and, homes that are being inherited. I'm sorry, I don't know all the terms off the top of my head, but Chad says that is a great way. It's very hard to do systematically. It's very hard to do on a national large-scale basis. If you can figure out how to find the probate homes in your town, that is a way that a lot of people are not doing it. So Millionaire Real Estate Agent is the book. Someone corrected me. I don't know what I said. Maybe I said Millionaire Next Door or something. Matt, I love that book. Me too. Colette, name of the book again. Yes. Oh, so Ben was answering Colette. Let me go over here to Facebook. Kevin Stewart says, what do you think about vertical living in the near future? Hey, Kevin, tell the class. Tell me more about that. I don't know for sure if I'm aware of that. So you asked the wrong guy. Sorry. But I'd love to hear more. Alan Mauder says, do you recommend any specific markets in the vicinity of Austin, San Antonio, or Houston for single family homes? Great question. I was at Google headquarters doing a tour last August 25th. Ben was with me, and we heard that their real estate investor club, we heard that they were actually, I forgot to tell you, it was days, and I mean days after hurricane, the hurricane that hit Houston, not Irma, that was Florida. And they were already planning a trip days after the hurricane hit to go start buying up real estate. So are there any deals left around Houston? I'd love to hear from anybody in Texas. Are there any deals, homes that were destroyed or damaged severely, homes you could pick up? If Houston's the number one market in the U.S., then I would say that would be a great place to look. Hey, Brian Adams. Brian, I heard about one of your new deals, and man, I am so jealous. Congratulations on your closing just a few days ago. I was hearing from one of your investors yesterday, I think it was, how really happy they were with you guys. Brian Adams is an amazing real estate syndicator, multifamily syndicator. He does deals around Atlanta and other places. And if you want to invest in multifamily, if Brian Adams has any openings in his deals, that would be a great place to go. Hey, Amanda, thank you for your like. Hey, if you like this show, if you like BiggerPockets, I want to say if you like me, but I don't want the thumbs down. Is there a thumbs down? But anyway, seriously, give us a thumbs up, give us a smile, give us a heart. It would be great. Alan says, do you recommend any specific markets? Okay, I already tried to answer that. Yeah, I would try, San Antonio, North San Antonio, Reed Goosens is a friend of mine, and 37th Parallel are friends of mine as well. They're investing in North San Antonio, and they're saying it's going very, very well. I've heard other people say that it's a little difficult there in North San Antonio right now, that rents are not really going up as fast as they were, but that's been a great market for a long time. So Emily Ponson says, what's the best way to find multifamily for at least 10 units, buy it, rehab, and rent it, other than regular big MLS website? There is a national MLS called LoopNet, and I don't want to down them guys, but professional multifamily investors rarely, if ever, use LoopNet. I tried to sell a large multifamily that we developed from the ground up years ago in North Dakota on LoopNet, and everybody said, no, don't go there. That's the graveyard of multifamily. That's a graveyard of commercial real estate. That's where people go when they can't sell it anywhere else. So think about that. If you're a new buyer and you find a great deal on LoopNet, you've got to ask yourself, is it really a great deal? And if it is it for a great deal for you or the seller? But I didn't answer the question at all. It is a really, really hard time to find multifamily. I wrote a book called The Perfect Investment about multifamily real estate. And honestly, it's been really, really hard to find deals. And so my company is actually looking at another asset class, self-storage right now, as I've talked about pretty widely on BiggerPockets recently. So it's hard to find deals. My heart goes out to you. If you can find deals in multifamily that work really well right now, you're doing something that my company has not been able to do very well. Brian has, like I said, there are people that are. I don't have any answers. If anybody else is finding great, 10 plus multifamily deals, let me know. I've got a friend, Whitney Sewell. He's probably on there. Whitney's been looking really hard for deals for quite a while. And, it's just been really hard. Robert Howard says, what type of banking terms do you prefer for multifamily? I prefer a non-recourse loan, and non-recourse loans are generally reserved for deals in the larger range, 70, 80 units and up. 5, 7, 10, 12. We got a 12-year. So the last multifamily we did was about a $9 million deal. We got a 12-year term, 30-year amortization, 4 years interest only. The interest rate was in the mid 4s. We got a green loan, which means we did a lot of improvements to reduce the rate by 20 basis points. That means 2.2%, which saves us about $12,000 a year. If you guys are looking for mid-sized multifamily loans, you can go to a company called Sabal, S-A-B-A-L. I don't know anybody there personally, but I've heard that they do great job on small balance loans. Cody, hey, how are you, Cody? You said, how do you feel about wholesaling? I'm in Houma and Thibodaux. I almost said Thibodaux, but I knew better because I used to live in New Orleans the year of the World's Fair, which shows how old I am, 1984. Thibodaux, Louisiana, using no credit on your own money. What is your approach on finding investors to help get started until I can start investing myself? Cody, if you can get 2, 3, 4, 5 deals under your belt, I know. That's like when Steve Martin says, how do I be a millionaire and not pay taxes? You say, Steve, how do I be a millionaire and not pay taxes? First, get $1 million. Second, okay, that wasn't funny. But how do you get to the 5 deals? I'm not really sure. But once you get about 5 deals, you can actually, sorry for the bad joke. So you can actually go to a crowdfunder. You guys will not believe how eager crowdfunders are for good deals right now. Realty Mogul, Realty Shares, these others. And again, I have no connection to any of these, but they're looking for great companies great individuals to invest in. So once you get a handful of deals under your belt, or if you can partner, there you go. If you can partner with somebody experienced, you can get money from these crowdfunding sites for debt and equity on your deals. And I would partner. That's what I would do. So there's my answer on that. Hey, Lauren. Hey, Mark. Oh, hey, yeah. Tib, dogs. Yeah, who knows what I would have said. Thanks, William. Appreciate the smile. Lauren says, Emily, oops, it's hard to follow all these. There's so many coming in right now. Sherry Jones says, Kevin Stewart, you're talking about condos, high rise. Okay. Antonio says, I have 3 single family homes in Houston, live in the property for 1 year and buy a property in the next year. That's a good strategy to use, by the way, if you're getting HUD loans, FHA. I'm paying market prices for the properties, cash flowing $200 to $300. Great, Antonio. That's fantastic. Thumbs up to you. Sherry Jones. Okay. So let me try to get some semblance here. Okay, somebody asked me a minute ago how to do the land flips. Well, I'm not sworn to secrecy or under contract not to talk about it. I will tell you the key is thinking of every possible use for rural land. Number 1, cell towers. Number 2, timber. Number 3, that goes right with timber, clearing it off and making it into farmland. I've heard of people who actually can buy land in rural areas like Virginia and for, let's say, $1,200 an acre. They clear it off, they sell the timber, they sell the pulpwood, which is different, and then they clear it down to the ground, which actually is quite expensive unless you have your own bobcat, and then they resell it as farmland for quite a nice profit. So I've heard some people do that. So maybe you can look into that and also look for a cell tower opportunity as well on that land. And so those are some opportunities to do that. Hey, Sean. Good to see Sean Morrissey. Good to see you on here. Ben, I am having trouble finding all my comments on Facebook, so I'm going to flip back over here to YouTube. And let's see, David Blandon, great question about connected investors. ROI's list is another platform. Any input, Paul? Yeah, connected investors is another large group. It's I believe it's a platform where investors get together. I did visit that probably 6 months ago. Colette says I need a realtor. Oh yeah, I still didn't answer that. ROI's list is another platform. David, I don't know anything about ROI's list. Never heard of it. Love to know about it. Colette says, how about VA loans for first timers? Yeah, I don't know the rules, but FHA, HUD loans, I imagine VA are the same. I'm guessing you have to live in the home yourself. So if it's a duplex, you'd have to house hack. I believe you have to live in those for 1 year. I have heard there are incredible opportunities for veterans. If you're a veteran, to get VA loans and to actually get VA loans on multifamily and actually parlay the benefits, whatever they are, of VA loans into making huge profits. And so somebody ought to check that out. I think somebody ought to Google that, because I actually talked to somebody for like an hour once at some event, and they were telling me all of these stories about how they were making a killing using VA loans. I don't know. Amir Khan says, how's Michigan for rental? Hey, somebody else should answer that. I don't really know. Colette says, I know the rule. I need a realtor. Yeah. Sorry, Colette. I would try Keller Williams. Like I said, I'm not even sure if I'm supposed to advertise. I'm not advertising for Keller Williams. Like I said, I'm not a Keller Williams agent myself. Somebody else on here should try to help out there. Antonio says, how do you feel about HELOCs being used for down payments and using them to pay off the mortgage? Absolutely. So I did a quick calculation today. Like, okay, what would the return on investment be if I paid my mortgage all the way down? Well, it would be the interest rate on the mortgage. I think somebody might want to refute me on that, and that would be fine. But I think if it's 4.5%, so be it. Now, if you can find a 15% return on investment for that same money, wouldn't it make sense, if it's safe, to invest in the 15, take the money out of your HELOC, which is a home equity line of credit, of course, and invest that in a deal that's really safe where you can get 15% return. Now, here's what I would do. you're guaranteed that the return on investment on your interest you're paying is whatever the interest rate is. Say it's 4.5% on your HELOC. You're not guaranteed the return on the other. So you should apply a risk factor to that. So if you think it's almost certain that you're going to get 15% return on investment where you invest it, maybe divide that, like maybe cut that down a little, say 15% times 80%. So give it a 20% risk factor of failure. And so you're comparing basically a 13.5% if it's a 90% chance, or maybe a 12% return to your interest rate of 4.5%. So anyway, as far as Michigan for rental, by the way, I've heard good things about it. When I left Michigan, when I left Detroit 20 years ago, it was imploding. There were 16,000 vacant buildings in Detroit, and I've heard nothing but good things about it for a long time. But Tiba Bridges says, interested in pre-foreclosures, any advice? Yes. Check the newspaper when those pre-foreclosure ads come out, basically saying that they're going to the courthouse steps. If you pack I shouldn't say that. If you have a concealed carry permit, you might want to use it. Go to the door and just be as friendly as you can and say, hey, I'm here to help you rescue your credit. I'm willing to jump in if the price is right and it works, to buy this pre-foreclosure and allow you to move on with your life. And then you can put it you can do it without any significant money down by putting it on a lease option sandwich. And I talked about that earlier. You can Google that. Other people call them by different names. So, hey, Caribbean Spice, or Caribbean, how do you say that? Northern Virginia. Not sure what you're saying. Self-storage seems so expensive. Flood of Sins says, yeah, sure is. But very profitable. There's a very significant difference between buying operating a mediocre self-storage facility and a great one. So I'll leave it at that. You can go read my article about that on BiggerPockets. There are thousands and thousands of mediocre self-storage facilities in great locations that, if they were run great, the profit could be significant. And there are operators who are making money hand over fist by just taking good facilities and making them into great facilities. And so my company just invested $2.8 million 2 days ago in a self-storage facility just like that one I described. And it was in Bradenton, Florida. So Peter Welch on YouTube said, Paul, what do you specialize in? Well, I wrote a book called The Perfect Investment, which is a book about why multifamily housing is the perfect blend of risk and return, and it's going to have demographics that support it for a long, long time. And I still believe that. Warren Buffett said that the internet, I don't invest in the internet, I invest in things I understand. The internet will never change the way people chew gum. And I believe, as I told an investor an hour or two ago, I think multifamily housing will be different, but it will be intact 100, 200, 300 years from now. I don't know if that's true about self-storage. I don't know if that's true about mobile home parks. I don't know if it's true about other things. I have some confidence it will be about mobile homes, but they are disappearing pretty rapidly across the U.S., which is a little hint for you supply and demand people. But at any rate, I specialize in multifamily, but my company is investing with great operators in self-storage right now because the economics are so positive. So if anybody out there on here today likes self-storage or is interested in it, just give us a thumbs up or a heart, or feel free to share this. Lee Carter on BP Live says, I've had a significant increase in home equity, but I also have a credit card debt due to medical bills. All is well now, though. That's great. Glad to hear that. What should I do with the equity? Pay off debt or do the first real estate deal? Hey, Lee, so about 10 minutes ago, I would say I answered that. And I don't believe my answer is right for everybody. But I do believe that if you can safely use home equity to get a return on investment that's safe and significantly higher than the interest rate you're paying on your debt, it's a really, really good thing to do. I talked to a guy in San Francisco today. He had a 500 square foot condo, and he said He had $75,000 cash in it, but it was now worth $500,000. And he was saying, maybe I should just sell that or just pull the equity out and invest. And I thought, heck yeah, I would. And so that's my answer, Lee. I hope that helps. Ben, I cannot see the next one below it because of the way my screen's set up. So you might want to just put in another slack or two to give me some room there. Keith Corson says you can have more than one VA at once. There you go. And VA rehab loans. Okay, so that might be an advantage of VA over HUD loans. Not sure. Thanks for joining us, Keith. Sandy Thomas says, what did you call about lease when you ask a homeowner to buy on a pre-foreclosure? Okay, so you don't have to tell the homeowner this, Sandy, but you can use a lease option sandwich, and it's going to take me much longer than I probably have time for here. But in summary, you go in and rent a property, and you pay. Usually these are properties that are in trouble, or they can't sell them, or literally we rented one days away from the courthouse steps. There's a due on sale clause in the mortgage, Sandy. It's not called if you put it into a land trust. That's my understanding, meaning that the owner does not have to pay it off, and you ask the owner to move out. You clean it up, fix it up, paint it up, do whatever minor things you can. I would stage it, to be honest, and then I would bring potential renters through it. And by the way, I forgot to tell you, tell the person you're renting it from, no guarantees. I might be able to save your foreclosure. I might be able to rent this out. And if I can, I will pay your mortgage directly every month. And they have nothing to lose because they're going to lose the house anyway, typically. Okay. So then let's say you're paying that mortgage $800 a month, but you're collecting $1,200 a month, which is exactly what I did in Roanoke, Virginia. You take the $400 a month. And again, assuming you've got all the other costs covered, like taxes and all that, you put that in your pocket, and then you sell it to the next person, and then you find a lease-to-own buyer who will come in. They will give you $5,000 or $10,000 down. Yep, and you use that as profit, or you basically set it up, the deal, so you put that in your pocket. And then when it's time for them to eventually close, if the second buyer, the renter, closes as a buyer, you'll get tens of thousands of dollars profit. And I know I way oversimplified it. Hopefully that helps. But when you walk into the pre-foreclosure, you just basically say, hey, I am going to try to rescue your home. And we did that once. There was a house that somebody owed like $40,000 on. It was worth like $80,000. And we just went in and said, look, if you want to avoid a bankruptcy or, a foreclosure, we'll buy it for it. And we gave her a nice little cash to go on. She was going to lose it anyway at the courthouse steps 2 days later, maybe 3. So we paid it off, stopped the sale. Again, this is a pre-foreclosure, and we actually bought that house. Now, if you have a couple weeks from the courthouse steps, you might have more time to try to pull off the lease option sandwich. There's other things you can do like that. We might talk about that later if there's no more questions. Kevin Stewart says, I've seen on Facebook people started to live in self-storage places. What? I have not heard of this. That's really interesting. Thanks, Kevin. Tell us more about that if you like. You're welcome, Sandy. Thanks. Mark says, hey, Coco. Hey, Mark. All right. So what else do we have here? I am back on my YouTube screen. So I want to buy a jail. Okay. Hey, Mr. Three Kings 3. Sounds good. Why do you want to buy a jail? Would love to hear. Colette says, I shall check out Keller Williams and private funding. Don't want to deal with banks. Yeah, I don't blame you. Like I said, if you've got some history, you've got a chance to get crowdfunding. I was really surprised at how lenient crowdfunders were with their terms and how they would put out deals to investors pretty freely. So I hope that helps. I still want to find out why you want to buy a jail, Mr. Three Kings. So David says, what's the best bang for your buck? Skip trace software or site that you can recommend. I'm going to put that out to the group. Would love to hear from you. If you have an answer, please try to put it on the YouTube side. But I don't know the answer. I do know what skip tracing is. I've heard it's very effective to find owners. And I talked about that briefly on the BiggerPockets podcast 3 weeks ago. And I was talking about something I had no personal experience with, but hey, what's new? All right. Maha, hello. Do you recommend one LLC for multiple properties or separate LLCs for each property? Thanks. Well, there's obviously a cost to putting together separate LLCs for each property, Maha, but if somebody gets injured and sues you at one property, you'd probably be better off just to have a real problem and have a risk of losing that one property than losing both. It's kind of like cross-collateralizing debt. A friend of mine had his back up against the wall. He had like 150 acres, and then he had a house completely separate. The same bank had both loans. They made him cross-collateralize, and they gave him a new loan on both combined. And it's been really hard because he has not been able to sell that land. Here he is stuck years and years and years later, but he can't let go of it because he would lose his house too. Pretty smart of the bank. Another reason to go with private lending, right? Okay. So, David Blandon, are there any opportunities to do business with you? Man, that's nice of you. Thank you. I'm starting out and I've found a great couple to partner with that I've been investing for the last 18 years. David, if you want to reach out to me on BiggerPockets, you can do that. And we should certainly talk. Thank you. It's very nice of you. I'm honored that you would say that. So somebody, Matt in Idaho again, says can use VA loan to buy up to 4 units. I'm trying to remember that strategy I heard where you could buy a whole bunch of units with the VA loan, but I think you have to get a whole bunch of veterans together. I think that was part of it. And everyone could buy up to 4 units and somebody would like organize the whole thing and take a fee for doing it. That sounds right. It makes sense in my mind, at least. So, Johan says, I currently have 33 properties in Houston. Should I go out of state? If so, what states? I don't know. Love to hear from other people. You're in the best. A lot of people think it's the best state in the United States. Actually, new statistics out say Idaho is growing fastest, right, Ben? But at any rate, I think Texas has the cities with some of the best growth and best investment opportunities. Like I said, Green Street, or green something. Data just said that Houston was the top place in the U.S. So that's pretty cool. Sam Beeson, hey Sam, how do you recommend getting started buying in rental properties on a lower income? I would do the Airbnb arbitrage. I would do the corporate rental arbitrage. By the way, if anybody wants information on the Airbnb arbitrage or the corporate rental arbitrage, reach out to me privately. It would take me up to an hour to explain it, but it's an awesome strategy with very little money out of pocket, a lot of effort out of pocket to do an arbitrage. Basically, think through it. If you can rent an apartment, let's say a new apartment that somebody's leasing up, somebody's built a new complex, it's going to take them 3 years. You go in and make a deal with the developer and say, look, please rent me this apartment at the lowest possible price with the flexible terms like a month-to-month deal. And then you get the lease set up with that apartment. You furnish it beautifully. You professionally photograph it. You put it on Airbnb and you start renting it out. You can make 2 to 3 times the revenue of what you're paying. And did you have to buy the apartment? No. Did you have to get a big loan? No. You had some risk. You had to get the furnishings. You have to pay for the utilities. You might have a month-to-month deal. But you can do this and put in, make 2 to 3 times what you're paying for the apartment. You can also lose your shirt. I guarantee that you can do that too. You've got to be in the right location. You've got to have the right demographics. You've got to have the right strategy. But then while you've got the Airbnb leased up on a short leash, meaning you only lease out 1 month at a time, let's say, you go out and look for corporate tenants. These are nurses, engineers, other people who are traveling and who are willing to pay maybe $2,000 a month in a normal market where the homes or their apartments rent for, say, $800 a month. And if you think about it, it makes sense. They get full furnishings, all the forks, knives, linens, everything. They get the utilities paid for. They don't have to sign a year lease. They can come and go as they want. They can do a 3-month lease. We had an offer today from a nurse to rent one of our $800 apartments for $1,300 a month, which actually I didn't even think was a great amount. but I think we can get more. But there is a way to do what's called a corporate or Airbnb arbitrage, and that is a great way. The question, by the way, was how do I get in if I'm young for low money down? And that is a definite way to do it. Another way, which we've discussed in detail here already, is the lease option sandwich. So if anybody wants to reach out to me privately, I will do my best. I'll put together an answer for you about the lease option sandwich or the Airbnb corporate landlord thing, and I will try to cut and paste that to as many people as I can if you reach out to me on BiggerPockets. Okay, so Samantha says, I plan to use the FHA program for my first property. Hey, Samantha, is it better to just go to a bank directly than to use a mortgage broker? Can a broker really get better rates with FHA being so strict? I don't think I have an absolutely certain answer on that, but I feel like the FHA is pretty regulated, and I feel like it's probably going to be the same either way. I'm guessing that you could go to a bank or a mortgage broker and get approximately the same deal. But here's what I would do. I would Google that, and then I would actually ask the bank and the mortgage broker, is it the same deal everywhere I go? And then I would compare rates. I mean, if you're real serious about this, actually get a quote from each one of them and see what you can find out. You're welcome, Sam. Laura Hayden Wallace. Hey, Laura, how are you? Can you use an IRA to invest in real estate? My company helps with this. I think you're saying that you can. Yes, I agree. Self-directed IRAs are a large and growing segment of the real estate investor population. I'm all for it. I've done it myself a number of times. I made $92,000 on a $100 investment in my IRA once. I actually bought an option on a property. I knew it was way underpriced. I went in and was able to parlay that $100 into a $92,000 profit. I want to be really, really clear. I've never been able to replicate that or even close. I've lost money in my IRA since then. I'm not trying to come across as some guru. But I was able to do that one time back in 2004. It was awesome. John. Hey, John Woodlocky says, oh, great. Please give details. So, John, I'm sorry. My screen is not allowing me to see your question anymore. So I am really sorry, and I don't know why. And Ben's going to teach me later how to make sure I can scroll a little better on my Facebook screen here. Maybe I can try. Hey everybody, if you're just joining us, welcome to BiggerPockets Live. I'm Paul Moore, and we're talking about real estate investment. Hey, if you, Josh, whoever that was, if you want to ask that question again, feel free. Clayton Town says, what's the best real estate career path that will be beneficial as an investor? I've got a lot of ideas about that. I think that you might want to consider being a real estate broker on the commercial side and use that information, those contacts, your experience to jump in from to being a broker to an actual investor. Another way is going to work for an asset manager. A third way is to go through a property management company. So those would be three good paths to start out with a job that pays you to learn the real estate investing business. Somebody asked, how do you find money for a flip? I'm writing a BiggerPockets article right now, and I was laughing as I was writing about how we never heard the term flip, and the first time I heard it, I'd already flipped dozens and dozens of homes. We called them fixer-uppers, and I don't know if that's in Southwest Virginia. So maybe someone can tell me if you were around long enough ago that you called them fixer-uppers, but that's what we called them in Southwest Virginia. Anyway, if you've got a fixer-upper or a flip home you need money for, I think BiggerPockets is a great place to find people to help you with funding. Like I said, if you can partner with somebody now and then later get a crowdfunding site to back you, you will be in very good shape. By the way, there's probably cheaper ways to get money. Speaking of self-directed IRAs, there's a lot of self-directed IRA money that's looking for opportunities to invest with others. And so if you want to get with somebody who has money in their self-directed IRA, that is a way to fund your flip. I have a friend who's got hundreds of thousands in his self-directed IRA. He loans it out at 12%. And these flippers get it, they take it, and they make a nice profit, and they just give him his 12%. He actually goes out, it's local in Colorado Springs, so he goes out and he checks out each property before he's willing to invest. Most people wouldn't do that, but he's just that way. So John Woodlocky again, how do you find money for flips? Even having past experience, most investors don't want to fund unless you have actually done one yourself. Yeah, partner with somebody. That's what I would do. There's got to be people in town who might want somebody who would be a bird dog to find new properties, somebody to help them do the repairs, someone to help them paint. I actually painted a flip home once. I painted a closet actually, and they redid it. So I don't think they thought I was a very good painter. I don't know. Hey, Joe Berg, thanks for joining us. What's the minimum cap rate you would consider on an apartment complex, and what's the historical norm for cap rates? I'd say the historical norm is probably between 7 and 9%. Now they're running in the 5s and 6s, and even less in some locations, 2 to 3%, believe it or not, in some of those coastal large markets. Joe, people will be surprised at my answer. I don't think there has to be, so first of all, I don't care about the price per unit for apartments. Somebody might say, hey, I got a deal of $50,000 a unit. And that means nothing to me. Somebody else says I got a deal for $30,000 a unit, might be a much worse deal. Someone else at $100,000 a unit might be a much better deal. So I always say we should look at the cap rate. Well, that's not completely true either, though, because think about it. What if there's some incredible performance problem, some huge management problem, some huge water leak, that you can be fixed, and you can go in and correct that within months. Let's say it's a policy and procedure change you can make, or let's say it's half empty because some previous owner did something egregious. Well, the cap rate on that might be 3%. But if you can buy it and quickly, and your investors and your bank understands the deal, like a bridge loan, you can get it up to operating at 8%. That could be a great deal at 3%. So I hope that helps. So you can't go on cost per unit, and you can go on cap rate more, but you can't even go just on cap rate. So let me move back over here. And Dave on BP Live says, I have a multifamily deal that I can contract and want to know how to put together something so that an investor will be enticed to partner with me. What should I, and I can't read the rest, Ben. Dave, reach out to me if you like. It's really hard if you haven't got a track record to entice investors. It's probably going to be a friends or family type situation that you're going to want to have. And that's what I would recommend. I think I answered that. What else should I show them? You can reach out to me and I can try to help. But I would think that would be a friends or family deal. You're going to want to show the projected profits. You're going to want to show the projected downsides. Investor wants to know three things. And this is why entrepreneurs and investors sometimes have trouble. An entrepreneur, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've also been an investor. I, as a serial entrepreneur, am incredibly optimistic. Look at all the great things that could happen. At least that's what I was like in my 20s and 30s and into my 40s. But now as a seasoned entrepreneur and a seasoned investor, I want to know three things. Not just all the great things that'll happen, but of course, I want to know what could go wrong and what are the downsides. And then the really seasoned investors ask a third question, and that is, can I afford to bear the pain of the downside? And serial entrepreneurs often don't look at that pain. And so you need to be able to answer all three of those really well if you want to get investors, especially as you're growing. So hope that helps. Joe Berg, you already asked about the cap rates. And here we are. Do you recommend one? Okay, I'm back over here. Hey, Antonio, you're welcome. Lightweight Trucking. Hey, how are you? David Blandon says, what's the best bang for your buck? Okay. Colette says, I need a mentor. That man in Colorado Springs, that's me. There are lots of mentors on BiggerPockets, and there are like literally 8 multifamily mentors. They range anywhere from $5,000 up to about $25,000. I spent $25,000 on multifamily mentoring, and I would highly recommend you find a mentor. Hey, Mark. All right. Thank you. My beloved forever. Hey, can you convert a 401k to a self-directed IRA? My understanding is that you can. You can convert a traditional IRA to a self-directed IRA. You can convert a 401k to a self-directed IRA, I think. So, hey, David, I see you are in Harrisonburg and 45 minutes away. Wait, you're 20 minutes from Harrisonburg and 45 minutes from Charlottesville. Hey, that's great, David. We should meet. I am near Lynchburg and Roanoke, Virginia, just to give you an idea. My family, we actually sold our company in Detroit to a publicly traded firm 20 years ago. We moved to the Blue Ridge Mountains, and we stayed here. So we raised 4 kids. There's a nice pond outside my window here and these beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains all around. Joe Sicking says, how do we get the self-directed IRA money? Go to conferences where there are self-directed IRA investors looking for deals. And you can also go to some of those websites for self-directed IRA investors, and you can start learning about how to do that. Emily, hey, any brokers specialized in multifamily in Colorado Springs, Colorado? I don't personally know. We don't invest there. Love Colorado Springs. Absolutely love it. I visit there every time I can. I go at least every couple of years. But we're a little concerned about the military presence. One stroke of the pen from the next president maybe eliminating a lot of jobs and a lot of our renters. So, hey, y'all, it's 2 minutes till the top of the hour. If you're enjoying this, please share it. Please give us a like. Please give us a heart. Please give us a thumbs up. And let us know if we're doing a good job, because if this is helpful, we'll do it again. Like I said, it's 2 minutes to the top of the hour, but I'm going to try to stick around and answer some more questions. So thanks again. So PGR Management says in-state versus out-of-state investments. Get a great property manager. It is really hard to manage out-of-state. We have an out-of-state property about 7-8 hours from us, and we have a great property manager. Even though property managers don't always do what they're supposed to do, you can hold them accountable. That's my biggest piece of advice for investing out of state, and check them out really carefully up front. Be like Warren Buffett. Do a ton of due diligence on the person and the company, and then that will help you take care of the deal. We feel like investing in the right location with the right property manager is about 2/3 of the battle. So for IRA money, try Craigslist. Laura, great idea. Never would have thought of that. Kevin Stewart says, this show has been great. Thank you for going strong for 40 minutes. Hey, thanks, Kevin. I appreciate that. Sandy says, very helpful, learning a lot. Thank you, Sandy. Okay. So Jack Mamu says, I just finished my first deal in Salt Lake City, Utah. Wait a minute, Ben. Is that the top state in the U.S. as far as growth? I think it might be Utah or maybe Idaho. And I'm looking to ramp up my flipping to do 4 deals next year. Great job. How much do you budget for direct mail marketing? I haven't actually done it. Let me tell you guys a secret, though. I don't think you're going to want to hear this, but my son, who's, like I told you earlier, flipping these large tracts of land, he bought a property. He'd owned it for a few months, and he got a genuine handwritten letter in the mail saying, hey, I really want to buy your property. And you could tell it was not machine generated. And he was so impressed. He called that guy and he offered to sell his property to the guy. But my son got an idea. This was a year and a half ago. I wonder if I could find a way to write handwritten letters. Now, he's really into a specialty business. He's not sending out thousands or tens of thousands of pieces of mail. He's only sending out like maybe a few hundred or 300 or something. So he actually hired my daughter, who was 15 at the time, and he had her start handwriting these letters. He paid her $2 per letter, and that was, to write the envelope, write the letter, and then seal it and send it. And he got an incredible response. People called him. People wrote handwritten letters back. People wrote typewriter, and I mean typewriter letters back. These were often older, really older people, and they thanked him for writing a handwritten letter, and many of them said, yeah, hey, I've gotten all these yellow letters and all this stuff, but I'd be willing to sell you my property. And so he made one of his best deals ever from a handwritten letter. So it's really hard. Now, there are machine-generated handwritten letters, or you could consider just handwriting the envelope, by the way. So there are machine-generated handwriting. Does that make any sense? Maybe I'm getting slap happy. I'm going to get a drink of coffee here. What I meant is they look genuinely handwritten. They're machine-generated. They're not cheap. Maha says, I'm starting investing on my own. Never had a loan on my own, though. My husband has an established credit. Should I start investing in properties on my own or partner with him to start with? Yeah, I think you should partner and put your name, both of your names on the loan if that's what's needed, and then you can establish your own credit pretty quickly. I'm not a fan of credit cards. That's one thing I believe Dave Ramsey on, even though I have people in my company who are on here right now who are amazingly good with never, ever, ever paying interest on their credit card, and they're racking up hundreds of thousands of miles of points. And so, great job, Ben. But anyway, I do believe that's a good way to go. But generally, I think people need to get credit cards to establish their credit as a kind of a last resort. So I hope that helps. Would you recommend wholesaling to gain capital for a multifamily property? Absolutely. I think that's a good way to go. Right now, it's really hard to find multifamily, as we've talked about to a great extent. By the way, one of the best articles on BiggerPockets today says I think it came out today, why the multifamily train just keeps chugging along and won't quit, something like that. Josh Ross says, who's that guy in Salt Lake City, Utah? Oh, gosh, I don't know. You're welcome, Ben. Very helpful. Thank you for your time. Appreciate that. Josh, the guy in Salt Lake City, I'm just not sure. So, I mean, if you if you can clarify your question, I think I must have already forgotten what I said. Deborah on BP asked, what mode of income should I use to fund my first property? I have access to a 401k, HELOC, or business line of credit. Deborah, you are sitting pretty. I would use a HELOC first. That's my opinion. I've used HELOCs, home equity line of credits, dozens and dozens of times. I'm doing it right now. A 401k loan, that might be equally good, and at least you're paying interest back to yourself. And so maybe I would actually try that first. You can see I didn't have a set answer for that. And then business line of credit would be my last choice. I actually don't know much about that. So Maha, you're welcome. Very helpful. Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Emily. Kevin Stewart says he just did a flip in Salt Lake City, I believe. Well, I just know people who are doing flips in Colorado Springs, and I'm not sure about Salt Lake City, so I might need to get more information to answer that question. I'm not even sure if I'm answering the right question. So what else we have? Mark. Okay. Hi, Mark. Or Mike Hulbert. What is the benefit of lease option and turning over properties versus long-term rentals with a property manager? What is the benefit of lease option and turning over properties versus long-term rentals with a property manager? Mike, I will try to answer that. I might be overthinking it. I'm not sure how to answer it. So if you can, I'm sure you're thinking clearly about it. I'm just not quite understanding the question. I really do want to. So maybe if you would just slightly help me out with that. Arthur Soto says multifamily homes market is sort of overpriced. What's your advice to someone starting out to finding a deal that will actually cash flow long term? I'm looking for answers myself. Ben, myself, my business partners, we are looking for multifamily deals every day. Invest with Brian Adams. Invest with Joe Fairless. Invest with some of these guys who are getting deals. They apparently have access to deals that we're not getting, so we don't have an answer. And I'm trying to be as honest as I possibly can. And it's a little embarrassing because I wrote a book called The Perfect Investment, and the perfect investment is perfect when you can find one to invest in. But it can be the imperfect investment if you can't find one, which I hate to think that that is the case, but it feels like that is where we are right now. So, CS, how are you? How can a newbie attract investors? There's a great story about if you're up north and you're trying to live on fish and you don't have a fishing pole and you're trying to get salmon. And so you learn to spearfish. You can cut a piece of wood into a spear. You can learn to throw it really accurately. You can hope that in this dark lake or stream, the fish swims by at just the right second, you can spear it. And that's going out to try to find investors. And you can do that. And I did stuff like that for years. There's another way to do it, though, and that is you can transform. This is a silly example. This is kind of ridiculous, actually. Sorry. But you can actually transform yourself into a grizzly bear, stand in the waterfall with your mouth wide open. I don't know. Go Google image this, and you can find these pictures of grizzly bears with their mouth wide open with fish jumping into their mouth. That is the way to find investors long term. Be a grizzly bear. Be somebody who's so active on BiggerPockets, so active on podcasts, so active on blogging, whatever you do, that people come to you and ask you to invest. That is a way to do it, and that is what I recommend. So, Mike, meaning why let a property go, sell it after 5 years, versus holding it and getting cash flows for 10 to 20 years? Mike, I mean, I don't really have an answer except to say, I mean, it's just got to be your preference. A lot of people want to get the money back in, say, 5 years. By the way, your first question makes total sense now. It was me. The problem was in my brain. Sorry. A lot of people want to get the money back because they're stockpiling cash to go try to buy a bigger property or buy a multi-family property. And so a lot of people think that would be a way to go, and so a lot of people would do it that way. Hey, Dead Stock Dell, interested in purchasing a rental property in Wisconsin, first-time buyer, not sure where to start. You may want to try to start with pre-foreclosures and doing the lease option sandwich we talked about before. Nanette says, which choose fourplex that's cash flowing just $200 in an upscale area with below market rents, or a fourplex that's cash flowing $800 in a bad area? I'm scared to get out of my car, or none of these. Nanette, I have a podcast called How to Lose Money. One of our recent guests talked about that exact thing. They did it in Niagara Falls. It all looked good. They were scared to get out of their car. They couldn't find a property manager to go there that even wanted to work in that area. Don't do that. That's my advice. Warren Buffett said it's better to buy a great company at a fair price than to buy a fair company at a great price. And I can promise you, after years and years of experience, do not buy a mediocre property. No matter how much the upside is, no matter how much the profit is, it will bite you almost every time. I've got lots and lots of stories from my own life I haven't even bought that many mediocre properties, but the few that I bought, usually they were trailers. I'm sorry to say, it's got profit written all over it, doesn't it? Little metal boxes that spit out money, right? Mobile home parks are great. Trailers, stay away in general. That's my opinion. I might get in trouble for it, but that's what I think. So I would never buy a marginal property. So, all right. So I am about to wrap this up. and I'm going to do that in about a minute. So I want to first thank you all. There's so many people on here, and I'm so grateful that you joined us. Do you think we should do this again? Please give us a thumbs up right now if you think we should do this again. If you think it was helpful, give us a heart. Let us know. Feel free to share this video with somebody else. And we are going to, like I said, wrap this up. It's 6:11 Eastern Time and 4:11 Mountain Standard Time for all you wonderful people out in the mountains. So thank you so much. This has been awesome. I'm glad to connect with all of you. I will do my best to answer a few more questions after we hang up here, and we will go from there. By the way, somebody is asking me about my website. We're Wellings Capital, but what you're going to want to do is go to my BiggerPockets profile and connect with me there. Thank you so much, and thanks again for joining us. Have a great day. Okay, Ben, how do I turn it off? Just kidding. Have a great day, y'all.